Shalom, shalom. This is Azariah coming back at you with another lesson. I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, that's been giving praise to the Most High God and His only begotten Son, who the world called Jesus Christ. Today's lesson I'm going to be talking about is, should we celebrate Thanksgiving? Now, I know we use this day to gather together with family, play all types of funny games, enjoy each other time together, especially with family members that you haven't seen in a long time. But the question is, should we observe this Thanksgiving Day? Now, I know people use this day to celebrate, but this is really a day of destruction, genocide, killing, rape, rob, and murder to the Native Americans, who you might not know is one of the lost sheep of the children of Israel, the Most High holy people from the tribe of Gad. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33 and verse 20. And it reads, "And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion and teareth the arm with the crown of the head." Now the Most High said he would enlarge Gad, but as you see that the Gadites didn't have a bigger portion in the land of Israel. So where did the Most High enlarge Gad at? When the northern tribes have traveled to North America. Now as you see that the Native Americans, they will wear the crown of feathers around their head, representing the wars and battles that they went through. Mainly the chief will wear this around their heads. Verse 21, "And he provided the first part for himself, because there in a portion of the lawgiver was he seated, and he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of the Lord and his judgment with Israel." When it said he provided the first part for himself, that means that he had the best land in here in North America. It says because there in a portion of the lawgiver. Now, you know that the Gadites, it was never a lawgiver in Israel, but he became a lawgiver when he executed the laws here in North America. When it says he came with the heads of the people is Ephraim and Manasseh. He executed the justice of the Lord in his judgment with Israel. The medieval empire of the Israelites. In 1587, the Jesuit Nicholas Deltus was sent to South America by the King of Spain for missionary purposes to convert the Indians to Christianity. In Argentina, Nicholas discovered a people who were born Jewish name, namely Abraham, David, Moses, and so forth, to the question about whether they were circumcised. These people answered thus yes, just like our ancestors. So you see that the native Indians were keeping the law of circumcisions. The Lord's Lunar Covenant Stone. The photograph at the bottom of this page showed the Ten Commandments written in the primary Paleo-Hebrew script written on a large stone found in the 1800s. At Los Lunas, New Mexico, near the Rio Grande, this stone carving could be 3,000 years old, and it contains the name Yahuwah, which is Yahweh. It was written in obedience to Deuteronomy chapter 6, as we are write them on our doorposts and on our gates. This stone was at the entrance to an ancient colony or settlement of Israelites that have navigated up the Rio Grande. The style of the letter yard used on the stone indicates that the Israelites of the northern 10 tribes, Samaritans, were in North America. It could have been inscribed on this stone as early as the 9th century BCE during the reign of King Solomon, or as late as the 146 BCE when Carthaginian Israelites were conquered by Rome. Many diaspora occur, but we now know that Israel was mostly a sea empire, and they were called Phoenicians by the Greeks. Yes, the Phoenicians were Israelites. They didn't call themselves Phoenicians. Herodotus, 5th century BCE, called them that. The Israelites traveled the ocean of the world as they mined tin, copper, gold, and iron. Did you know that the distance from the western coast of Africa to South America is less than the width of the Mediterranean Sea. Columbus didn't discover the Americans. Israelites were already living here, and many became what are now referred to as Native Americans. This was the stone that was found with the Ten Commandments written in Paleo-Hebrew. Antonio de Mastradamus was a Portuguese traveler and a Moreno-Sarfatic Jew who in 1644 persuaded Manasseh ben Israel, a rabbi of Amsterdam, that he had found one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel living in the jungles of Quito province, that is, the Pichincha province of Ecuador. This supposed discovery gave a new impulse to Manasseh Masonic hopes. Manasseh wrote a book about this narrative, The Hope of Israel. In it, Manasseh argued and tried to give learned support to the theory that the native inhabitants of America at the time of the European discovery were actually descendants of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. Now you know that they knew exactly who we were living on this side. They know exactly who they was taking the land from, who they was killing, genocide, slaughtering, raping, robbing from. They knew that we were the lost tribes of Israel.
In war, people fight against each other, but in many situations there has been no war, but only genocide. This history of American genocide is often ignored or sugarcoated by saying that Columbus simply discovered America. It's important the truth of American genocide is brought to light. This is about what really happened.
Well, first of all, systematic, deliberate and systematic extermination of a particular hated target group. That's the way I'll say it. And in this case, in this country, the hated target groups were indigenous peoples, native peoples.
There's 5 elements that will define a genocide, and only one of them involves killing. The other one is making it impossible for people to practice their way and speak their language.
You know, it's the attempt to wipe out an entire race of people.
Started with mass murders and the disease and all that stuff. It continued when they realized that that wasn't totally working, that it continued into the boarding school era and taking away our cultural identity and our land and just taking away everything.
When this continent was visited by Columbus and the others that came after him, the millions that came after him, most of them were not coming here because they wanted to learn about the native people and the native culture. They wanted to change it.
Just 6 miles from here, down at Fort Snelling, was a concentration camp where the Dakota people, largely women, children, and elders, were held prisoner after the 1862 war, before they were shipped out.
Another one is Pequot Massacre of 1637. About 700 to 900 Pequot people were fried in the fire. And then of course, at what happened at Wounded Knee, some 300 people slaughtered there, and then the Sand Creek Massacre in Colorado, where hundreds of Cheyenne and Arapaho were slaughtered there, and primarily again women, children, and elders were slaughtered.
In Minnesota, sort of textbook example of genocide took place here, even though you won't read about it in Minnesota textbooks. The War of 1862 between the Dakota Nation and the United States resulted in the death of about 500 European soldiers and settlers, an untold number of Dakota people.
Mankato, where they hung the 38 Dakota POWs after the war. Again, You don't generally hang POWs at war. You punish them, you imprison them, and you release them.
I think the biggest negatives of the land being taken away is the loss of who we were. We're so connected to the land, to sacred sites, and our belief that everything is connected, everything is related. Obviously, our connection to buffalo and hunting and all that.
There's a psychological effect too, not having access to your land. I think we see this with a lot of Native people. They're disconnected from what is their true homelands. They don't have that. They've lost that relationship with the land.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 49 and verse 19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. When the conquistadors came over here, they knew exactly who we were, and they had one agenda, that was to take over this land. And that was by any means possible, even if it results in killing, genocide a whole race of people to get this land. This is the book of Lamentations, chapter 5, verse 1 through 2. Remember, O Lord, what is come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, and our houses to aliens. You see, the Most High called these heathens Europeans, strangers and aliens, and they took our inheritance, which is our land, from us. Lamentations chapter 5, verse 3 down to 5. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us. Our nets are under persecution. We labor and have no rest. When the Europeans came over here, they conquered the Native Americans and took everything from them. They killed them and slaughtered them and genocided a whole race of people and persecuted them and put them in slavery. Broken treaties with Native American tribes timeline from 1778 to 1871, the United States signed some 368 treaties with the various indigenous people across the North American continent. Between the Revolutionary War and the aftermath of the Civil War, over the course of almost a century, the United States and the Native American nation signed some 368 treaties that would define their relationship for centuries to come. The treaties key off the fundamental idea that each tribal group was an independent nation with their own rights to self-determination and self-rule. But as white settlers began moving onto Native American lands, this idea came into conflict with the relentless pace of westward expansion, resulting in many broken promises on the part of the U.S. government. Now look at that. Imagine someone coming into your land, taking everything that you work hard for, built up, and just claiming to be theirs, and rape, rob, and murder, and enslave a whole race of people. Now, is that something you want to be celebrating? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 55, and verse 20 through 21. He hath put forth his hand against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. You see, they made peace treaties with the Native Americans. They taught smooth words to them, right? To deceive them, because they had one agenda only. That was to take over the land by any means necessary. This is the book of Micah, chapter 2, verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hands. Verse 2. And they cover fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. See, the Most High is against these type of people. He said death and destruction to these type of people that like taking over land that is not theirs. This is the book of chosen people from the carcasses. Now, this must have been the case because it was the conquistadors who first murdered and enslaved the American Indians during the first century of colonialism. before this first century of exploitation was half over, the supplies of Amerindians had already gotten scarce in some places. Then the idea of importing black Africans in large quantities to replace them was convinced. Indeed, the slave trade became the largest single European maritime activity, since on much evidence, Jews were well represented among the conquistadors, if not an actual majority of the first wave of them, and since Jews virtually controlled the administrative and financial aspect of Europeans' maritime commerce, the conclusion is inescapable that Jews must have had a large and profitable role in the New World genocide and slavery. So you see that the Europeans and the Jewish people that was calling themselves Jews helped finance the slave trade of the black African Americans and the genocide of the Native Americans here in America. Next page. The point of all this is that we now come to an issue not presented in any popular history of the Jewish people or any of the numerous books on anti-Semitism. Not a whisper or reverence to it has entered our public school systems, and it is simply that the Jews were a major participant in the genocide of American Indians as conquistadors, and were a major participant in the greatest human tragedy history knows. No, not Hitler Holocaust, the transatlantic slave trade. You see that? The Jewish people, they had played a major part as the conquistadors in enslaving and killing the Israelites. So why would we celebrate a wicked holiday such as Thanksgiving?
Happy Thanksgiving, America. I'm Donna, and I'm here with my friends to tell you the real history behind this holiday. Growing up, I knew that what they told you in school about Thanksgiving wasn't true. That's not the true story. The true story behind Thanksgiving was, after every killing of a whole village, these European settlers celebrated it, and they called it Thanksgiving. But it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln became president that it became an official holiday.
He ordered 38 Dakota men to be hung for war crimes.
After the sacred holiday Christmas,
we take this time to remember our elders who lost their lives due to what really happened. Usually my mom makes a Native American dish for us and we pray.
Growing up, I would be kind of annoyed that they didn't know what actually happened on Thanksgiving and that they're actually celebrating the deaths of many people and many tribes that were lost.
Whether it's to give thanks or to be with your family, you should learn how the holiday was established in the first place.
I'm thankful for being born indigenous to this continent.
I'm thankful that I still have my culture.
I'm thankful that my elders kept our culture alive all these years.
I'm thankful to be indigenous, resilient, and alive.
I'm thankful for us all to be able to stand together, stand strong, and stand as one.
Happy Thanksgiving, America.